time horror. Enjoy our spine-chilling stories as you sleep, commute, or relax. If you're new, hit subscribe and share with friends and family. Let us know in the comments how we can improve. Our stories are best experienced with headphones on. Now, let's dive into today's tale.
Warning: the following stories contain elements of horror that explore themes of the supernatural, possession, psychological terror, and gruesome transformations. They are intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for those sensitive to graphic imagery or themes of death, entrapment, and eternal damnation. Listener discretion is advised. The Lavender Stain, a Veridian Wellness story. Chapter 1. The Foreclosure Notice. May 7th, 1999. Sacramento. The sterile white of the envelope felt obscene in Sarah's trembling hands. The bold red letters screamed "Foreclosure Notice" across the top, a brand marking her family with a shame that felt both personal and devastatingly unfair. May 7th, 1999. A date etched into her memory like a scar. She stood on the cracked pavement of their cul-de-sac on La Mancha Way, the Sacramento sun beating down, yet a chill snaked down her spine. Her younger brother Michael, 15 and perpetually glued to his Discman, was oblivious a few feet away, attempting a clumsy skateboard trick off the curb. Their mom, Linda, was inside, probably blending another murky concoction of Veridian Wellness elixir, the very thing that had brought them to this precipice. Veridian Wellness. The name tasted like ash in Sarah's mouth. It had started innocently enough. A friend introducing Linda to the amazing opportunity of selling health supplements. Soon the garage was overflowing with boxes of brightly colored powders and suspiciously sweet-smelling juices. Linda, always seeking purpose and validation, had been swallowed whole by the relentless positivity and promises of financial freedom. It wasn't financial freedom they found, but a spiraling vortex of debt. The starter kits, the mandatory monthly product purchases to maintain her status, the constant pressure to recruit others, it had bled them dry. Sarah, then 22 and working 2 jobs to put herself through community college, had watched in horror as the savings dwindled, the credit card bills piled up, and the warmth in her mother's eyes was replaced by a glassy, almost manic zeal. The arguments had been relentless, escalating into shouting matches that shook the quiet suburban street. Interventions were attempted, family meetings orchestrated with strained smiles and even more strained pleas. Nothing worked. Linda was convinced she was on the verge of breaking through, on the cusp of the financial breakthrough Veridian promised. The foreclosure notice was the brutal culmination of their failed efforts. The bank gave them 60 days. 60 days to somehow conjure up tens of thousands of dollars, a feat that seemed impossible. Sarah felt a wave of nausea. The California sunshine, suddenly too bright, too mocking. Chapter 2. The Counselor's Office. Arden Arcade, June 15th, 1999. Another date seared into Sarah's mind. This was the day they'd finally, after what felt like a siege, convinced Linda to see a counselor. Dr. Albright's office in Arden Arcade was small and smelled faintly of lavender, an oddly soothing scent against the backdrop of their turmoil. The session had started predictably. Linda, initially defensive, reciting canned testimonials about the transformative power of Veridian. Dr. Albright, a woman with kind eyes and a patient demeanor, had listened attentively, gently probing asking about the financial burden, the emotional toll on the family. Sarah and Michael sat rigid in their chairs, hope flickering like a dying candle. They recounted the late-night sales calls, the pressure on them to recruit their friends, the constant lectures about the toxic chemicals in their food, while their mother extolled the virtues of bright purple juice. Then came the moment. Dr. Albright, leaning forward, her voice, soft but firm, said the words that still echoed in Sarah's nightmares. "Linda, you're choosing between your children and a juice company." The air in the room seemed to thicken. A silence descended, broken only by the faint hum of the air conditioning. Sarah held her breath, praying, willing her mother to see, to understand the gravity of the situation. Linda's reaction was swift and chilling. Her face, usually animated and expressive, became strangely blank. Her eyes, the windows to her soul that Sarah had known so well, flickered with something cold and unfamiliar. She stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the linoleum floor. "Yes, I am," she stated, her voice flat, devoid of emotion. Then, without another word, without looking at her children, she turned and walked out of the office, the lavender scent clinging to the air like a perverse irony. Sarah and Michael stared at the closed door, stunned into silence. The counselor sighed softly, a look of weary pity in her eyes. That day, something truly broke within Sarah. It wasn't just the hope of saving their home. It was the realization that the woman she knew as her mother was gone, replaced by someone consumed by something insidious. Chapter 3. The Veridian Rally, July 10th, 1999, Napa Valley. With the eviction date looming, Linda became even more fervent in her Veridian activities. She spent hours on the phone, attended countless meetings, and even started driving to Napa Valley for weekend leadership retreats. Sarah, desperate to understand the hold this company had on her mother, decided to follow her to one of these events. July 10th, 1999. The Napa Valley sun beat down on a sprawling vineyard, its picturesque beauty a stark contrast to the unsettling atmosphere Sarah found at the Veridian Visionary Summit. A large white tent was erected in the middle of the vineyard, pulsating with loud, upbeat music. Inside, hundreds of people, mostly women, were clapping, cheering, and chanting the Veridian mantra, health, wealth, and happiness. Sarah felt a knot of unease tighten in her stomach. The energy was manic, almost cult-like. Shiny, smiling faces, all radiating an unnerving level of forced enthusiasm. They all seemed to speak the same language, using terms like synergy, abundance mindset, and life-changing opportunity. She spotted her mother near the front, her eyes shining with an almost feverish intensity. Linda was surrounded by other distributors, all dressed in the company's signature purple and green. They were hanging on the words of a charismatic man, on a stage, a slick-back hair and a booming voice promising them the world. Sarah watched as her mother, her own mother, laughed uproariously at jokes that weren't funny, nodded vehemently at pronouncements that sounded hollow, and eagerly purchased more product from a pop-up Veridian boutique after the presentation. She tried to approach Linda during a break, but her mother's eyes flickered with annoyance. "Sarah, what are you doing here? This is a very important networking opportunity." Her voice held a sharp edge Sarah hadn't heard before, a dismissal that stung. As the day wore on, Sarah observed the rituals, the forced testimonials, the staged success stories, the subtle pressure to spend more, recruit more. She saw the desperation shimmering beneath the veneer of enthusiasm, the anxious glances exchanged when someone questioned the exorbitant costs. That evening, the summit culminated in a bonfire and a bizarre chanting ritual under the stars. Sarah watched from the shadows, a growing sense of dread washing over her. The faces illuminated by the flickering flames looked almost possessed, their voices rising in unison, proclaiming their devotion to Veridian. She caught her mother's eye amidst the crowd. Linda's gaze was distant, lost in the collective fervor. Sarah saw no flicker of recognition, no trace of the woman who used to tuck her into bed and read her stories. Chapter 4. The Lavender Stain, August 1st, 1999, La Mancha Way. The eviction was now just days away. Boxes were piled high in almost every room of the house on La Mancha Way. The air hung heavy with the scent of dust and a sickly, sweet undertone of Veridian's Lavender Serenity aromatherapy oil, another product Linda swore by. One sweltering afternoon, while Linda was at a Veridian empowerment seminar, Sarah was sorting through her mother's belongings. In the back of a cluttered closet, behind stacks of Focus and Flourish brochures, another Veridian line, she found a small locked wooden box. Curiosity overriding her better judgment, she managed to pry it open. Inside, nestled amongst dried lavender sprigs, were several notebooks. They were Linda's journals, dating back to the beginning of her involvement with Veridian. The early entries were hopeful, filled with excitement about the new venture and the possibility of financial independence. But as Sarah flipped through the pages, the tone shifted. Gradually, subtly at first, then with increasing intensity, the entries became unsettling. There were affirmations, repeated over and over. I am a magnet for abundance. Veridian is my destiny. I will not be swayed by negativity. Then came strange diagrams, interconnected circles, and arrows with words like energy flow and manifestation portals. The later entries were disturbing. Ramblings about cleansing her aura, blocking out the negative vibrations emanating from Sarah and Michael, and cryptic notes about the true purpose of Veridian, something beyond mere juice sales. There were mentions of ascension and unlocking hidden potential through dedicated product use and unwavering loyalty. Sarah discovers a chilling note about lavender whispering promises. The scent in her home turns sinister, and she feels watched. Her mother, Linda, comes home late with a lavender stain, looking like a shell of her former self. Sarah realizes the true horror isn't just losing their home, but losing her mother to Veridian Wellness's insidious influence. She fears this terrifying transformation is only beginning.
If you're new, hit subscribe and share with friends and family. Let us know in the comments